catcher Derric Rossy, now trying to sack Carl Davis Drumond. And there's Derric Rossy. He's from Long Island, but he's been living and training here in Florida for the past half year. He's settled into what he says are weights he feels comfortable with. That's 240 pounds on his 6'3" frame. Rossy's road to being a heavyweight has been an interesting one. He was a star defensive lineman who went on the start on bowl-winning teams at Boston College, and he used boxing as a way to get in shape for pro tryouts. He was under the guidance of the late, great Al Gavin. His power and athleticism enabled him to run his mark to 15-0 before he lost to Eddie Chambers on Friday Night Fights. Of course, Eddie in studio with Ryan tonight. He then spent significant time at the Shaolin Temple, the monks in China, studying the mental and physical science of being a fighter. And his only other career blemish is a loss in Europe to Alexander Dimitrenko. Rossy has now won 3 straight.
This fight tonight fits great. I mean, well-respected opponent in Drumond, and gives me the grand stage again to get back on and show what I have. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I can't say what I can do. I can't talk anymore. I can prove it, and nationally televised, everyone gets to see it. So I'm pretty sure everyone will be happy, especially me.
Now this guy wouldn't. Tonight he faces Carl Davis Drumond, 6'3", 237. He's built his 25-1 record mostly against competition in Costa Rica. He did recently open some eyes losing a technical decision to Ruslan Shagayev. That was in Germany this past February. And Teddy has the Just for Men hair color stay in the fight analysis.
Well, let's start with the football player turned boxer first. Rossy, you're much bigger. You're a former football player. Act like the bigger guy. Be aggressive and attack his smaller body. For Drumond, you're smaller. Well, act it. Be quicker and box on the outside.
Scheduled for 10, Frank Santori, the referee.
Over the instructions in the dressing room, we both understood them, all right? Trunks are both where they're supposed to be. You keep your blows here above. All right, guys, I don't have to wrestle with you, all right? If I say break, take a step back and break. Questions? Good luck, guys.
You see a scar right there, a scar on the right arm of Drumond. Drumond did some jail time back in 1996.
He's been in the midst of controversy outside the ring back in his native Costa Rica. Some allegations. He talked about the time in prison. Had rape charges against him that were dropped when a story had inconsistencies by the accuser. But he says those folks, the accusers, going after his money that he thinks he's made from boxing, and that nothing has been a distraction to prepare him for this stage of his career, he told us.
The funny thing about that theory about going after the money that he's made, as far as I know, he hasn't made any real money yet.
Had to fight over in Germany against Shagayev, when you can, a place where you can cash a decent check, but for the most part, Drumond has been fighting in Central America, and all but 2 of his fights have been in Costa Rica, so obviously yet to cash in with the money that is available in the heavyweight division, but this is a fight that could advance either man.
Yeah, this is the only second fight in the United States for Drumond. His only loss, as you said, Joe, was in his last fight, and it was for the world title in Germany. Rossy has been staying for what it's worth, if it gives him maybe a little help, and he needs help, because he's a raw guy still. He's a guy who was a football player. And I always look at the guys that change sports like that. They're usually undeveloped, as Rossy is, and they don't usually have the confidence of a fighter who started as a young boxer with amateur experience. They're always looking for that, and most of the time they don't get it. So we're going to find out. This should be an interesting, competitive match, kind of an even matchup on paper. With maybe the athletic edge, I would think, goes to Drumond. He could box a little bit on the outside and maybe take advantage of the rawness that I just talked about in Rossy, the undeveloped part of Rossy.
Stop reaching around and grab with that hand.
Rossy talked to us about the fact that he had to evolve, making things fit, that now he considers himself a professional fighter. But early on in his career, when he was making that transition, and was still years into making that transition, it takes years to really learn the sweet science and feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, guys that don't start young and have that real amateur background, they usually don't make it. And the one thing that I started to touch on that maybe helps Rossy in this fight is he's been active. This is his second fight this month.
Took this fight on short notice. Chaz Witherspoon pulled out, and Derric Rossy was relaxing on a beach in South Carolina when his phone rang with the offer to have this fight and open up Friday Night Fights. He jumped all over it.
Let him go. Come on, guys.
And again, you could see, I talk about maybe Rossy not having that background, doesn't have confidence you want in a fighter. You could see that he grabs on the inside, not confident to work, even though he's a big man.
Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas ringside here on Friday Night Fights. Eddie Chambers and Brian Kenny in studio, and in the ring right now, our heavyweight co-feature, Carl Davis Drumond, against New York's Derric Rossy in the black with the gold. Round number one, Rossy had a 15-12 connect advantage.
You know, I talked about the lack of amateur background in Rossy, 10 amateur fights total. Drumond, he didn't have many amateur fights, only 6. I talked in the Stay in the Fight about Rossy being the naturally bigger man, natural heavyweight. But he's got to use that physical side. I don't know if he has, you know, it's one thing to have the physical skills, another to have the temperament, the mindset to match up to use those physical skills. You know, Rossy could be the bigger, strong. If mentally he doesn't feel and envision himself as the bigger, stronger guy, Joe, then he's not the bigger, stronger guy, because he's not going to use his body the way that a bigger, stronger guy should use it against a smaller man. Drumond, he's fought at around cruiserweight limit. He's even been down to 196 pounds once. And Rossy has always been a full-fledged heavyweight. He's never been below 231 pounds. By the way, Drumond coming in tonight, heaviest of his career. So you wonder about his conditioning a little bit.
Rossy waiting on Drumond. Now he comes forward with a right hand. That was just a glancing blow. You know, Rossy talks about, yeah, he got a late start to the game, but he fell in love with the game instantly because of who he was with. He was with Al Gavin, who we lost 5 years ago. It was one of the greatest cornermen of this generation.
Yeah, trainer, cornerman, one of the great cutmen of all time. And more importantly, and it reminds me a little bit on this melancholy night when we're thinking about Vernon Forrest, Al Gavin was also one of the best people.
Oh, he was.
That you're ever going to meet in this business, and he's missed greatly.
Rossy always talks about Al Gavin every time he prepares for a fight and he's interviewed. Fires off the right hand, tries the right uppercut. It was blocked.
Well, that confidence, and maybe lack of confidence that you can detect in Rossy sometimes, is growing a little bit with Drumond, because Drummond's following him around. He's not cutting the ring down. And he's doing nothing. No better way for a guy to get confidence than when your opponent leaves you alone. And Drumond is leaving Rossy alone.
Double jab, right uppercut moments ago for Rossy as we come to the end of round number 2. Heavyweights opening up our action from the Hard Rock in South Florida. More to come. Stay with us.
Well, Drumond leaves Rossy alone, so nothing fancy here. Rossy moves his hand, used the jab, set up that uppercut. You see that uppercut there,
yeah,
Joe?
I did.
You know, we were talking about it in between rounds. That's the uppercut of a fighter who doesn't have great confidence in Rossy. He didn't go through with that uppercut. He kind of pulled it short a little bit, like a guy who's not sure when he throws it. Instead of punching through the surface, he stopped at the surface.
Yep, he was already pulling back the right hand before he was bringing the left hand, and if he had punched through the target, he would have done some damage there to Drumond. Drumond with a burst of confidence to open up this third round. Now they settle back.
You know, there's not a